The siege of Saguntum took place in 219 BCE, during the Second Punic War between Rome and Carthage. Prior to the war, Carthage had established a strong presence in Iberia, while Rome had been expanding its territories in Italy and the Mediterranean.
Gods be with you, men!
Saguntum was a city in eastern Iberia that had formed an alliance with Rome. However, in 226 BCE, the Carthaginian general Hamilcar Barca, father of the famous Hannibal Barca, had conquered a large portion of Iberia, which included Saguntum's territory. Despite this, Saguntum continued to maintain its alliance with Rome, and in 219 BCE, the Carthaginian general Hannibal marched on the city, intent on taking it for Carthage. After laying siege to Saguntum for 8 months, Hannibal finally breached the city's walls. The defenders fought fiercely, but they were outnumbered and outmatched by the Carthaginian forces. Many of the inhabitants of Saguntum chose to commit suicide rather than fall into the hands of the Carthaginians. The fall of Saguntum was a devastating blow to Rome's prestige, and it prompted the Roman Senate to declare war on Carthage. However, Hannibal's success in taking the city was also a testament to his military genius. He used innovative tactics, such as the construction of siege towers and the use of elephants in battle, to overcome Saguntum's defenses. The fall of Saguntum marked a turning point in the relationship between Rome and Carthage. The Roman Senate, outraged by the attack on one of its allies, declared war on Carthage, starting the Second Punic War that would last for over 17 years and involve some of the most famous military campaigns in history, including Hannibal's invasion of Italy and the Battle of Cannae. The siege also had a profound impact on the ancient world. It demonstrated the strategic importance of Iberia, which became a key battleground for Rome and Carthage throughout the war. It also solidified the rivalry between Rome and Carthage, which would shape the political landscape of the Mediterranean for centuries to come. After the siege of Saguntum in 219 BC and the crossing of the Rhone River, Hannibal Barca and his army began their march towards the Alps. But as they made their way through the highlands and woods, they were ambushed by treacherous Gallic clans of Allobroges and Centrones.
I will kill any man who shows fear or mercy.
Hannibal's army was a formidable force, made up of a mix of hoplites and mercenaries from Iberia, Numidia, Libya, and Celtic territories. The Gauls feared the Carthaginian horsemen and refused to engage them in open combat on the plains. Instead, they planned to ambush Hannibal's army in the highlands and woods. But Hannibal was a skilled commander and predicted the Celtic deception. He planned an assault, positioning his elephants and horsemen in the army's back.
Surely we should take the fight to them.
The Gallic warriors were fierce fighters, known for their bravery and cunning tactics. They knew the terrain well and had chosen a spot where they could launch a surprise attack on Hannibal's army. The ambush began when Hannibal's army entered a narrow pass. Suddenly, the Gallic warriors emerged from hiding places on either side of the pass, launching a ferocious assault on the Carthaginians. The Carthaginian commander quickly ordered his troops to form a protective column on all sides of the pass while the cavalry and elephants retreated away from the army. Gallic attackers launched an all-out assault, trying to overwhelm the Carthaginians. The attack came from both the north and south of the pass where Hannibal's army was marching. The Numidian cavalry and elephants were dispatched to the north to push back the attackers, while the rest of the Carthaginian cavalry coordinated a counterattack to the south. Hannibal also ordered some of his infantry from the rear column to break formation and support the cavalry assault. However, the Carthaginians were unable to break through without the cavalry support. Despite the initial onslaught, the elephants and Numidian cavalry successfully pushed the Gauls back to the south. Seeing the Carthaginian cavalry counterattack, many Gauls started to retreat in panic. The Gallic attack from the south was completely stopped and the enemy warriors were routed. As a result, the Gauls in the front and center began to retreat as well, with only a few warriors remaining to fight the Carthaginians. Hannibal emerged victorious from the battle, but not without sustaining heavy losses. After defeating the Gallic ambush, Hannibal quickly put his troops into marching formation and continued his journey towards the Alps. His ultimate goal was to surprise the Romans on the other side of the mountains and launch an assault from the north. The journey was treacherous, with Hannibal's army facing steep cliffs, rocky terrain, and harsh weather conditions. But despite these challenges, Hannibal pressed on, determined to reach the other side of the Alps. Along the way, Hannibal raided neighboring Gallic towns that had been abandoned, gathering additional supplies and pack animals for the upcoming journey. These resources were essential for the army's survival in the rugged terrain. Hannibal's army faced even more challenges as they began to traverse the Alps. The snow was deep, and the slopes were steep, making the journey even more perilous. But Hannibal was determined to reach the other side before the arrival of winter. After weeks of grueling travel, Hannibal's army finally reached the other side of the Alps. The journey had been a difficult one, with many soldiers lost along the way. But Hannibal's determination had paid off, and he was now poised to launch a surprise attack on Rome from the north. Hannibal's crossing of the Alps in 218 BC was a remarkable military feat that involved him leading his Carthaginian army, along with a number of elephants, through the treacherous terrain of the Alps mountains in order to invade Italy from the north. Hannibal arrived with his army in northern Italy, surprising the Romans who had already withdrawn to their winter quarters. This led to the cancellation of Rome's planned invasion of Africa. The Carthaginians had exhausted their food reserves and needed to obtain supplies while also recruiting allies from the North Italian Gallic tribes. However, the local tribe, the Taurini, were unwelcoming, prompting Hannibal to besiege their capital and storm it. He then massacred the population and seized the supplies. Hannibal's brutal actions were intended to send a clear message to the other Gallic tribes about the consequences of non-cooperation. Hearing that Publius Scipio was operating in the region, Hannibal assumed that the Roman army in Marsala, which he had believed to be en route to Iberia, had returned to Italy and reinforced the army already based in the north. This led to Hannibal feeling an even more pressing need to recruit strongly among the Gauls. Both Hannibal and Scipio attempted to inspire the ardor of their men for the coming battle by making fiery speeches to their assembled armies. Hannibal stressed to his troops that they had to win, whatever the cost, as there was no place they could retreat to. Next day, each commander led out a strong force to personally reconnoiter the size and makeup of the opposing army, about which they would have been almost completely ignorant. And so, with tensions rising and both armies ready to fight, the stage was set for the first major battle of the Second Punic War, the Battle of Ticinus. As Hannibal approached the Romans, he prepared for battle by recalling all his scouts and raiding parties, and taking with him an exclusively cavalry force. This cavalry consisted of Libyans and Numidians, who were light skirmishers, and Iberians, who were unarmored close-order troops. Scipio's army consisted of 4 legions, with approximately 16,000 infantry and 1,600 cavalry. Anticipating that his cavalry would be outnumbered, Scipio supplemented his 3,600 cavalry with a large but unknown number of the 4,500 or so available velites. The stage was set for a battle that would be fiercely contested between the two sides, each determined to emerge victorious. Hannibal and his forces formed a tight formation, with Spanish cavalry in front and Numidian light cavalry in 2 groups behind them. Scipio, the Roman consul, replied with his velites in the front, aiming to use javelin throws to soften up Hannibal's cavalry. Gallic allies positioned behind them, while Roman cavalry waited in reserve. As the two armies approached each other, Hannibal noticed that the Roman cavalry was smaller than his own and made an instantaneous choice not to engage in skirmishing with the velites. Instead, he ordered a full-fledged assault on the Roman front lines. Scipio promptly replied by pushing his cavalry forward, but the velites couldn't even muster a single javelin volley before the Carthaginians pounced. Unlike the customary mobile cavalry clashes of the day, a furious and brutal fight ensued. In the chaos of close-quarters warfare, horses spooked, and many riders dismounted to fight more effectively on foot. The combat appeared to be inconclusive for a while, but this was another ploy by Hannibal. He waited until the majority of the Roman cavalry had been committed before sending his Numidians on a flanking maneuver. The Romans were completely caught off guard, as the noose began to tighten around their troop. Scipio was knocked off his horse during the brawl, and Carthaginian troops rushed in to kill off the wounded commander. But he was saved at the last moment. According to some versions, the Roman consul was saved by a Ligurian slave, while the more famous version tells that his 17-year-old son Publius charged to save his father with a handful of Roman horsemen that swarmed around the consul before withdrawing back towards the Roman camp. As word of Hannibal's triumph spread, Gallic tribes dispatched delegates to express their gratitude. It was a gloomy day for Rome, and it marked the start of a long and arduous war against their most obstinate opponent.
On this channel, we are putting together narrative historical cinematic battles. Make sure to subscribe and thank you for watching. See you on the next one.